Look, these rules are not optional. These instructions have been put in place to stop the spread of this virus and to save lives. These rules should be followed at all times. Everyone should stay at home and should only leave their home if they have to shop for basic necessities, no more than once a day. If they've got to go to the doctors, if they're exercising, no more than once a day, or if they really can't work from home and are travelling to and from work. It's really important all of us follow these instructions at all times.
Do you think they've come soon enough, these restrictions? You were calling for more, pushing for more. I know you spoke to the Prime Minister yesterday and asked him to go further than they had already.
I think it's really important that we've got here now. I've been for some time concerned about the fact there's been a lack of clarity, and that's led to people not following the guidance from the experts. What's really important is all of us realise that if we mix with each other, we're spreading this disease, which means more people will die. And that's why it's so important for all of us to stay at home. I've been working from home for some time now. All of us should do the same, unless it's really essential for us to leave home.
Do you think, though, that these restrictions should have come earlier?
Look, I think there'll be a time and place for us to ask serious questions about what's happened so far. Now is the time to follow the instructions, which are quite clear. Please stay at home. Don't leave home unless you've got a very good reason to do so. These rules are there for a reason. Following these rules at all times will save lives.
You will have seen the pictures of the tube this morning. Why were Londoners not listening? You have been saying, the government have been saying for days, stay at home unless you really have to travel. You saw packed tube carriages this morning.
Well, I've seen images not just around London but across the country of people not understanding the scale of the challenge we are facing. These are unprecedented times and they call for extraordinary measures. My message to everyone is follow the guidance from the experts, and that guidance is quite clear. Stay at home, work from home. Only leave home if you've got to go to the doctors, if you've got to shop for essential things, if you've got to exercise no more than once a day, and if you really can't work from home and you're travelling to and from work. My worry is people don't seem to understand that by us mixing, we're spreading the virus, which will lead to more people dying.
You're the mayor. You have overall control of transport for London. Do you think that too many trains were withdrawn too early and that led to some of the overcrowding scenes that we saw this morning? And is that something you will go back and reconsider and perhaps put or ask TfL to put more trains on?
Transport for London has been working closely with the DfT and the government, and on the advice of the government we've been reducing services, providing a weekend service for the weekdays. The problem is people aren't following the advice from the expert and staying home. They're leaving home to go to work. We've seen across the underground 80% reduction in the use of the underground, more than a 60% reduction in the use of buses, but clearly too many people aren't following the advice and are using public transport. Public transport is only there for critical workers, essential workers who we need, running the NHS, working in public transport, our police service, our fire service. So I'm really pleased now the Prime Minister's made this announcement, and it's really important we understand these rules aren't optional.
There was some concern that perhaps the construction industry were some of those using the public transport particularly early this morning. Is that something you raised with the Prime Minister in terms of perhaps extending the restrictions on who should be allowed to travel? Perhaps that definition of key workers is too wide and too many people are included in it.
I've expressed my concerns to the Prime Minister directly, and at COBRA, that a definition of key workers that is too wide can lead to too many people not following the advice to stay at home. The First Minister of both Scotland and Wales, and actually in Northern Ireland, agree with me, and it's really important for the government to realise we need as many people as possible staying at home. The only people who should be leaving home is those people that can't work from home, those that are essential for those to look after us.
So would you like to see then construction workers excluded from that list of key workers so that they are not travelling? Would you like to see perhaps a pause in building work in London?
In my view, the only construction workers that should be working are those that we need for safety. I think this is a time to understand the scale of the challenge we are facing. These are extraordinary circumstances. Of course, it's really important to recognise this is an economic emergency, and a social emergency, but more important than that, as a public health emergency. I've already seen too many Londoners losing their lives, too many people across the country losing their lives. I've seen what's happening around the world, and I think what we've got to do is rise to the scale of the challenge.
And in terms of where you go from here, in terms of advice for Londoners, apart from stay at home, is it as simple as that?
You know, what's really important is for us to understand that these rules aren't optional. These are instructions that we've got to follow, and if we don't follow them, this virus will spread faster. If we don't follow them, people will die. So only if there are exceptional reasons should you be leaving your home. I'm quite clear. I'd rather the police and the council weren't spending time enforcing these instructions, but if people don't follow the instructions, they will enforce them.
Yeah. On enforcement, the Met Police and local authorities, both of whom are stretched, will by the end of the week be asked to stop gatherings of 2 people. Is that possible in these times when they have so much else to do?
You know, we're a city that's come through so many challenges in the past. I'm confident we can rise to this challenge. I'm confident that Londoners and people around the country won't need the police or the councils to enforce these rules, because we've got to realise that actually by interacting with others, we're spreading the virus, and the vulnerable and the elderly will probably die. And that's why it's really important we all act responsibly. I've seen some of the best of humanity over the last few days and weeks. Neighbours looking after their elderly and vulnerable, shopping for them, dropping it off on the doorstep. I've seen people who were retired from the NHS going back to work in the NHS. I've seen teachers, transport workers risking their personal health to serve our city. I'm confident that will rise to this challenge. What I don't want to see is police officers or council staff who should be focusing on other priorities enforcing these instructions.